3 months. So potentially this is going to be £7,500. It's not likely to come until June, which is one of the downsides to it. If your trading profits are more than £50,000, you unfortunately not eligible for this. It is going to be based on the last 3 years' tax returns, and what they mean by that is 16-17, 17-18, 18-19. So anyone who became self-employed after the 6th of April last year, again, unfortunately not eligible at the moment, and they're not going to take this current tax year, so that ends next week, they're not going to take that into account. So even if you were to get your tax return in on the 6th of April for 19-20, they won't be looking at that profit. So they're going to look at the last 3 years and get an average of that to get your average for the year and then an average for a month. So if you've been trading for the last 3 years, they will take all of those trading profits, divide by 3, and then divide that by 12 to get your monthly. If you became self-employed partway through, so whether that's in 17-18 or you only have the 1 year of 18-19, they'll just look at that. So if you've got 2 years, they'll divide that by 2. If you've got 1 year, they'll just take that 1 year. So they're taking up to 3 years. They're also saying that the majority of your income must have come from self-employment. So if you've had employed jobs or been on PAYE for during the same period, at least 51% of the income must have come from self-employment in order to be eligible. Something additional that they've added into the guidance, is they've been updating it every day since the announcement last week, is that on top of all of that criteria, you need to have continued trading in 19-20, and the intention must be that you will continue to trade next tax year, so 6th of April this year through to 5th of April next year. I don't know how they're going to monitor that, because particularly at the moment we don't know how long this is going to go on for, what this is going to actually mean for people, but I imagine it's going to be in the way of a declaration of, is your intention to continue trading in the coming year. The other criteria is that you must have experienced a loss in trading profits as a result of the current situation. Again, they haven't actually said what that means or how they're going to ask people to evidence it. I'm suggesting to my clients that if you have any emails or anything that you can get where someone has said, oh, we're cancelling this project because of the current situation, or we're not looking to take people on at this time, anything you've got that would help build a case, is that until they release the application, which they haven't done yet, we won't know what they're actually going to ask people. But yeah, I would imagine it's going to be just on a declaration of, yes, I have experienced a loss. But yeah, if you have anything, say emails or just notes of calls, I would just keep a note of everything, and just in case, because yeah, we don't know how they're going to ask for evidence. And that is a bit of a whistle stop to it.
Yeah, there's a lot in that.
There was a lot there.
I think the best way to try and unpack some of this might be to use potential situations that a lot of self-employed will be in at the moment. So you touched on the idea of, let's say, being a part-time freelancer with another job on the side. Can you flesh that out? So you touched on the idea of having to have earned over 50%. Is that, you mentioned revenue?
So it's profit. They're going to be looking at profit. So if your profit was more than 51%, so let's just make it easy. Say you made £1,000 in total income in the year, and £500 of that was from employment. As long as £501 was your profit from self-employment for the year, well, it would be 499 and 501, wouldn't it? But yeah, you would then be eligible. So yeah, I think that might end up knocking a few people out of it. But yeah, they're looking at profit for that one rather than revenue.
Yeah. Okay. And then to clarify, if your average profits exceed 50 grand, you're also out of luck with the scheme.
Yeah, and that's over the 3 years as well. So you had like your first, what is normally typical is that your first few years are a bit lower, and then you might then have a very good third year. They're going to average that out. So if you, I don't know, say we're over 50,000 in 1 year, but we're well below it in the other 2, that will then average it out. So as long as the average is under 50, you'll be okay.
Okay, so let's just summarize it here. So you have been self-employed for a period of time prior to April 2019, which means you're applicable. Your profits average less than 50K, and you have not earned more in profit from a PAYE role or a part-time job, so you're in. What happens next? How can you claim?
Yes, so HMRC will be contacting you proactively. We're not too sure when they will start. They need to actually build the application and build the process that they'll use to get people. They have all of the information from tax returns, so they will be actively contacting people. They have allowed a grace period. So for anyone who hasn't yet got their tax return in for last year, so the one that should have been in January, they have until the 23rd of April to submit the returns. And at the moment, it looks like once that period has passed, so after the 23rd of April, HMRC will start contacting people. You'll then be invited to apply. The application will be online, but as I say, at the moment, I don't know what that application will look like. So at the moment, you can try and get a sense of whether you're eligible and roughly how much that might be. But yeah, HMRC will contact you if you are eligible and will then invite you to apply. Having said that, I would urge everyone to just quickly run through their figures themselves to see if you do feel you're eligible. And then if HMRC don't contact you, once the application's open, just get in touch with them. Because yeah, this is quite a big scheme that they're rolling out. They're doing it at speed. It might be just worth keeping an eye on it. If you feel you're eligible and you haven't heard, I don't know, say by the end of May or whenever the application's open, I would get in touch with them proactively.
Sorry, Emma, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, and then the payment will be, that's expected to be made at the beginning of June, and that will be in one lump sum. So this is for, I said before, this is for up to 3 months, so up to 7,500. It's going to be paid in one lump sum direct to the bank.
Okay, so 2 questions I want to ask about that. One is, what do freelancers need to start gathering if they don't receive that letter and need to apply proactively? And 2, will that lump sum be taxable?
Okay, so the first one, at the moment, I'm not too sure exactly what you'll need to apply. I would say as a minimum, get together your tax returns from 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19. As I was saying before, if you've got any emails or anything that documents that you're going to have lost profit as a result of this, get that together. That should be all you need. But as I say, once we know what the application is going to look like, we can then update you with that. And on the second point, yes, it's going to be taxable income. My understanding at the moment is that this will then be declared on the just thinking which one will be in at that point, the 2021 tax return. So the one that will be due by January 2022. Because it's going to come in June 2020. So yeah, it'll fall in the 2021 tax return. So yeah, it will be taxable income on that.
Okay, so in essence, it's additional income to your business, no different. Yeah. Okay, you declare it as such. Okay, fine. I suspect there's going to be a lot of people who may be eligible, but June is a long way away and may feel right against the wall in terms of survival. Anything that they can do in the meantime to try and financially support them between now and June?
Yeah, so for those people, and also for those who aren't going to be eligible, the support there is universal credit. So they have increased the standard allowance for that by £20 per week, and that effectively brings it into line with statutory sick for so I'm getting feedback. Has someone got their mic open? Because I can hear myself. No, that's fine. Okay. Yes, so universal credit is brought into line with statutory sick pay. So it's being raised to about £94 a week, which I appreciate isn't a huge amount of money. So universal credit is the option there for people. Slight problem with universal credit is that it also takes into account other people in your household. So say you live with your partner and your partner is full-time employed, their income is going to be considered as part of the household income. But a single claimant who is over the age of 25, the top amount that they could claim is just under £410 per month. People are being encouraged, even if they feel they are going to be eligible for the grant, people are being encouraged to apply for universal credit now if there's going to be a problem with money between now and June. If you then get the grant later on, that is then just classed as income for the universal credit. So the universal credit payments will then be reduced accordingly. So it's not an either or. So if you feel that you'll be eligible, but June is quite a way away, get your application in for universal credit, and then that will just be taken into account and amended accordingly later on. What they have done with universal credit as well as increasing that standard weekly allowance, they've increased the housing allowance as well. So there's a housing allowance element of that, which would help with rents, and that's for private renters, not just for those in social housing. And they have also relaxed the minimum income floor. So I don't know if anyone has had experience of applying for universal credit before, but if you are self-employed, they assume that everyone earns a minimum level, regardless of whether you actually earn that or not. So if you're below 8, they still say, well, this is the minimum income floor. As a self-employed person, this is what you should be earning. They've relaxed that for now. So they're looking at your actual income, not what they think a self-employed person should be earning. That system, again, is under quite a lot of pressure at the moment. So there are big queues. It's taking a little while to get appointments, but do keep persevering with it. I have heard, so normally there's about a 5-week wait for the first payment. They did say that they're increasing the number of advanced payments, that they call them, to people. And I have heard from people that they are getting payments pretty quickly. So you shouldn't have to wait the full 5 weeks. But yeah, get the application in as soon as possible. As I say, when you get the grant later on, that will just be taken into account.
Yeah, we've heard similar things. We're often going to get the headlines that are fairly negative, but the sort of internal comms that we're getting, some people are finding it useful and pretty quick. I want to invite Simon Leach just to jump in here. He's got a question on the household. Simon, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering what the threshold was for the household income, and if you exceed that threshold, is it worth registering just to kind of get on the list, as it were, or whether it's just a complete waste of time?
Yes, I would still suggest registering because this is changing so regularly. So even if it's something that wouldn't be applicable to you now, we don't know what's going to be announced like in the coming days and weeks. So I would still get the application in. In terms of the threshold, I'm not quite sure. So the benefits isn't really my area of expertise. I'm an accountant and don't deal with like benefit side of things. And universal credit is also a little bit complicated because it depends on age of you, age of other people in the household, and different levels of income. But we can drop will you be circulating a link later, Matt, with links for how to claim for universal credit? Because there's some good guidance there. But yeah, it's very much depends on individual circumstances. But yeah, I would say even if your household income is above that, I would still put an application in, because it might be that you aren't eligible for the universal credit side of it, but you are eligible for the household allowance, so the housing allowance, or you're eligible for working tax credits. So I'd still put an application in, and then they will let you know what you're eligible for.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Ivan, do you want to jump in just on that UC point that you've made?
Sure. So I know I'm not going to be eligible for the help for the sole traders. If I apply for universal credit on the assumption that right now I've got zero income, but I pick up a bit of work in the meantime, how does that work, considering that if I do 1 hour's work, that's already more than the government are proposing to give me for a whole week?
Again, I'm not entirely certain about that. Would be a question for the universal credit people. I think it would be taken into account, but my understanding is that even if you're claiming universal credit, you would still be able to earn. There will be a threshold for that, but I'm not entirely certain what that threshold would be. But I would still get an application in, as I was saying to Sam before, still get an application in, and then even if you then do get paid work in the meantime, they will then be able to let you know how that affects that application. But my understanding is that you can claim universal credit and do a certain amount of work as part of that.
Right, but I mean, presumably the certain amount of work would be, if it exceeds the amount that they're proposing to pay as a sort of subsistence payment, then it just wipes it out, yeah?
I'm not able to answer that. That would need to be for a benefits specialist. Sorry,
yeah.
I can let you know what I know of the system, but I'm definitely not a benefits specialist.
I'm just trying to ascertain whether it's worth dedicating 5 hours to queuing to put in an application, or spend those 5 hours trying to drum up
to get work.
Work. You know what I mean?
I can have a bit more of a look, and then send through to Matt what I find, and he can then circulate that. Because that is universal credit is a very complicated system anyway, and as you say, it might be worth actually trying to put that time rather than queuing into trying to get paid work.
Thanks, Ivan. And now, could you jump in and ask your question? Or I can read it out. So, okay, if I would apply for the interest-free business loan, would that affect applying for either or universal credit and self-employed income support? Would the loan be classed as income?
So the loan wouldn't technically be classed as income. I'm assuming you're a sole trader, and so it wouldn't technically be classed as income. It shouldn't affect the self-employed income support or the universal credit. The interest-free business loan, so it's interest-free for 12 months, and then interest will apply after that. Those loans are just commercial loans. So they're done through just the regular commercial banking providers. Some of them have said that they're not asking for a lot of guarantee, because they're 80% guaranteed by the government. When they were first announced and released, quite a lot of the banks were actually they were almost ignoring that element of it, and they were still asking people for personal guarantee. So you could apply for the loan, but as they are commercial loans, it may be that you don't actually meet the criteria for those. If you do, so it might affect universal credit. It shouldn't affect the self-employed income support, and it wouldn't be classed as income in terms of taxable.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
On mute button. Okay. That's really interesting. Yes, I am self-employed. So we were thinking about that if it comes to the 3 months payment holidays and mortgage, because they add the interest on that, it actually turns out that the interest is going to be more than a month more, 3 months mortgage payment. So it's actually a very expensive way of deferring something. So we really try to avoid that. So I was thinking, well, if they're doing a business loan, interest free, it's almost cheaper for us to get a $3,000 business loan and not pay interest on that, but that would be directly going to mortgage. So it wouldn't be kind of, it wouldn't be money for food and kind of living and business expenses and overheads that I have to kind of pay still. So this is kind of, you know, just try to scheme around all this money that's kind of floating around and find like a way where I can like pay least interest.
So there's a list of 40 providers. I can provide that list later as well.
Thank you.
And there's then a subset of those, and it seems to be increasing all of the time, because once one bank says we're not asking for personal guarantees, the other banks are starting to come in line with that under peer pressure, which is quite nice. So a subset of that 40 are then being a bit more. I think that they're applying more the spirit of the loan, whereas they weren't before. But they are, as a sole trader, they would effectively be a personal loan, even though that they're calling them business loans. It would be a personal loan, so the interest free is for the first 12 months.
So
that would still be a huge help.
So would you still have to make like a minimum payment every month, just like a normal business, like a normal loan?
Yes.
So
the repayments are there.
To pay it.
The repayments are still there, but just the interest isn't accruing in that first 12 months.
Sure. Thank you. That was really helpful.
Thanks. Any other questions on universal credit on general loans or on the self-employed income support? If not, I'd like to invite Paula Vaccaro to ask her question. Paula?
Sorry. Hi. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you so much for organizing this. So we are a bit unsure. Our company only has 2 employees, and it's the 2 directors of the company. Okay. So effectively, we operate as a company, but we are the only ones who receive a really, really tiny salary. We have been really hit by the crisis, because a lot of the work that we had done in the past few years with films were coming to fruition just now. So we had a film, we do films. We had a film stop on its tracks, about to hit the cinemas. We had another film stop on its tracks, about to be finished in post-production. So we build work throughout years, and then work comes out, and that's when we get revenue. So our company has very, very little money in the bank, and we don't know what can we ask for at this point, because nothing seems to cover what we need. My husband and I were both the directors of the company, so also that means that the company is the key support for our household as well.
I'm assuming that you don't have any premises, do you, from what
No.
Okay.
So we had an office that we had to close just at the beginning of March. We were not being able to sustain it, and when I looked at the whole thing, we kind of dissolved. So that's one of the first hits we did. We had to close our office. We had part-time people working with us and freelancers who have been working with us for 8 years. In some cases that we stopped hiring. That was a decision that we took last Friday. So we paid them. So now it's just us, the confinement and homeschooling, and the possibility or not of getting our salaries, which are extremely tiny. I'm talking minuscule. But even that seems that if we use that from the company's bank account, we will run out of money in 6 months max.
So unfortunately, you're falling into one of the groups of people who are falling between the cracks here. So from limited company point of view, whether you have like one director or two directors within the company, if it's just directors rather than other employees, the self-employed income support scheme doesn't apply, because although they're calling it self-employed, what they actually mean are sole traders and partnerships. They're not talking about limited companies. The reason I asked about the premises was because if you'd been eligible for small business rates relief, then there is a £10,000 grant that is going out to people. So that could have been one possible option. Other than the business interruption loan, which I was just talking about before, the only real option is the job retention scheme. And that is paying, again, 80% of salaries, up to £2,500 per month. I'm going to assume you're on like the normal director salary of $720 a month. So that would be 80% of that, which is off the top of my head about 525-ish. The slight issue with that, although it doesn't sound like it would apply in your case, is in order to use that job retention scheme, you have to do what's known as furlough your staff, and that is effectively putting them on standby. So
only one of us as directors could do, because
you could potentially do both, and this is something that we're still seeking clarification on. It looks at the moment that you could furlough both of you, but no client work would be able to be done. So you'd still be able to carry out your statutory obligations as a director. So that would be things like filing company accounts, approving VAT returns, organising payroll, that side of things. Anything actual business work, so anything that's income generating, wouldn't be able to be done. I'm trying to find out, I'm trying to seek clarification whether that includes marketing as well.
So that means creating invoicing, like invoicing for things, which
no,
we have
it's just anything, they're just saying anything that's income generating. And depending on what view you take of that, that could be actually doing client work, or it could be marketing, because obviously the point of marketing is that you then get work in at some point. Yeah. So it's not quite clear what directors would actually be able to do if they were on furlough, but they certainly wouldn't be able to do any client work.
Yeah. And one last question, how about the grant that they're offering for small companies?
That is only if you, the £10,000.
Yes.
That is if you have premises and are eligible for small business rates relief.
So only if we have premises, even
yes.
if the premises that we've been using and are using right now are our home, right?
Correct. So that it doesn't apply if the premises are, if you just work from home. So it has to be external premises.
If we work from home because of this situation, because we had an office and we had to let go of the office.
Did you qualify for small business rates relief when you were in the office?
I am not sure.
Were you registered?
We were subletting.
Okay.
Our office was inside of a premise of a theatre.
Okay, so check your documentation from that office. If you were subletting, you probably weren't registered for business rates, and so even if you were still in that office now, you wouldn't be eligible for the grant, unfortunately. But yeah, this is one of the things that a lot of people are lobbying quite hard for now, because a lot of us don't work from premises. We work from home, but we are still businesses. And yeah, unfortunately at the moment, there is very, very little support available for those people.
So maybe the furlough and maybe the loan.
Yeah, so just to add a little bit more information on the furlough, so the job retention scheme, that will pay 80% of that salary. So the company would still need to pay the salary to you both at the moment, and then there will be an application that's currently in progress, currently being built, that you will then claim that back. So the money still needs to be paid out like upfront by the company, and then you get a refund of that money from HMRC later on. They're talking about April for that being up and live, but I don't know. April is a long month. I don't know whether they're looking at beginning or end of April.
Thank you very much, Emma.
Emma, can we touch a little bit on what potentially might unfold over the coming weeks and months? I know it's all up in the air and changing hour by hour. I guess we have a better picture of what's available to the self-employed, and to give some context, we're in talks with a number of partners to try and push some of the areas that people are confronted by. So we're going to start by seeing if we can have the 1920 tax submissions considered as part of the package. Another one is to see, can we do some work around the date? Can you talk a bit on the limited company side? So do you see anything in the pipeline whereby limited companies are going to get access and support?
I don't know. So I don't know how many of you are also members of IPSI, the self-employed group. They released something early, yesterday, I think, over the weekend, that seemed to be suggesting that they weren't going to be pushing too much harder on the limited company side of things, because they felt it was directly linked to the IR35 issue, and that if they were arguing for support, they feel that that means they've lost the IR35 argument forever. I don't really follow that line of thought. I think they're two completely separate topics. But yeah, I'd like to see something come. I don't know whether it will. I think limited companies, I mean, self-employed in general is a very complicated group of people to try and give any support to, because it covers, like, obviously covers lots of you guys, but also covers so like some barristers and some TV presenters and things. So there's a huge big group of people who all fill out self-assessments, and how you get the support in the right place for that is very complicated. The then directors of limited companies, who for the most part take quite a small salary, and the majority of their income they take in dividends, how you then separate the people who are taking dividends from their own company out from the people who are taking dividends because they have shares in other companies. Because when you do it on your self-assessment, you don't have to say where those dividends have come from. They're just dividends on the form. So trying to bring those people into it is also very, very complicated. What I personally would like to see is that £10,000 grant for businesses who are eligible for small business rates relief. I'd like to see that widened, and I think that would be quite a good approach to take for directors of limited companies. But I don't know. I don't know whether that will come in. I'd really like to see 1920 being brought into it, or at least something being put in place for those who went self-employed in 1920. I can see how it would be difficult to include 1920 for existing sole traders, and I don't know if their systems could cope with everyone trying to submit their self-assessment in April. But I would like to see something being brought in for the recently self-employed. But yeah, for directors, although I'd like to see something, I do think, unfortunately, they're probably going to be a group that end up with very little. And the furlough thing, the job retention scheme, will be helpful to some people, particularly if you've lost, well, really, it will only be useful if you have lost all of your work. And if you've lost all of your work and you're taking a £720 salary a month, 80% of that is very low. And for those people who have lost some work, but that they are still getting a bit of work in, they're probably going to be the main ones who lose out on the support. So not very cheery, unfortunately, but
Yeah, the reality. And one of the positives that we've seen is the ability to continue to work. And as we adapt, and something that we're seeing a lot of is freelancers now trying to find alternative solutions to generating income online, pivoting and adapting their business to some degree, applying for universal credit, applying for the self-employed income support scheme, and continuing to push their business forward. There could be silver linings at the end of this in the way of adapting your business and having a more diverse business once we get out the other side. We are grasping at straws to a degree because we're also hearing different stories on how it's badly affecting people. This is something to hold on to, and I think if we can do as much as we can in terms of supporting freelancers to adapt their business in that space, well then there is hope that you'll not only be able to keep going and generate income, but have additional skill sets and a more diverse portfolio at the end of it. We're going to stay on top of it and release anything that we learn via social. We have a guide on the website, which is a PDF. It's free to download, about surviving coronavirus as a freelancer, and it covers a lot of the things we spoke about today. Emma, I think you and I will keep talking and releasing updates as we get to know them. And if you guys have any questions, Beatrice, I've got your question, which I think is a general accountancy question. I'll reply to that after. Do get in touch with us. So we're really keen to try and offer as much support as we can at the moment, and dedicate any hours of the day that we can to you guys. So I think we'll wrap it there. I thank everybody for joining. I especially want to thank Emma for all of the insights, really informative and super helpful. I've recorded this video. I'll get it onto the site as quickly as possible. And then do stay in touch, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks, Emma.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Take care.